Do you ever feel like a hamster on a hamster wheel, not getting anywhere new? Perhaps you've hit a plateau that has you asking, is this it? Have you accomplished all you've set out to do in life and are not feeling as fulfilled as you thought you would? It is normal at midlife to reassess what's working for you and what's not. It's also normal to want to reclaim your time, your energy, and your joy. Let's make the best out of the second half of our lives by having more fun, experiencing more peace, and feeling more joy. If any of this resonates with you, then this podcast is for you. I'm Megan Bayless Bartley. Now let's get ready to shift our shit. Hello there, and welcome back to Shifting Our Shit podcast. I'm Megan Bayless Bartley. We're in season 4. We're resetting this season, and this is our 3rd episode. We're going to be looking at, I think it's important before we start moving forward with the reset, we need to honor the past. We need to know how we got to where we're at. So looking at this past year, giving it a touch of attention, in essence, to maybe understand how we got to where we're at, what worked for us this past year, and what did not work for us. So before we get into our exercises to reset that are from my book, The Reset, 6 powerful exercises to refocus your attention on what works and let go of what doesn't. So the first exercise is to honor the past. So when we think about the past and honoring the past, this past year, I mean, perhaps you can think about things that have worked for you and things that have not worked for you. But let's most look at this past year. So I like the idea of visiting the past and visiting the future. So learning from experience of what you've done that's worked or not worked, and then looking at the future of what you're going for, what you're wanting, but really living in the present. Okay, so past and the future are very important, and we have to make choices in the present so that we can get to where we want to go in the future. So that keeps us really mindful, and it gives us a rainbow of options of things that we can choose moving forward. So take a moment, are things that you set for yourself. Maybe there were goals or intentions you set for yourself this past year in 2023. And think about, what you accomplished, what you didn't accomplish, perhaps why you think you accomplished things and didn't accomplish others. We're going to get more specific here in a few moments, but just start working through, how your past year was, so that you can look for learning from your own experience. Now, we don't necessarily need to label our experiences this past year as good or bad or right or wrong. But rather, I like to look at them as learning lessons. Did it work for us or did it not work for us? Sometimes, what did not work for us might never work for us ever again. But what didn't work for us this past year might work for us in 5 years from now, right? So it's kind of like knowing and using your intuition a little bit, using your gut feeling of like, here's why that didn't work right now, but I could see how that could work if some other elements were possible. So, but it's good to see in this immediate sort of thing, maybe what didn't work this year probably might not work this coming year. So maybe we don't want to try that. Or if circumstances are a little bit different, maybe you do try it this coming year. So as we're honoring the past, now if you have a pen or paper around, you could write these things down, or you could just choose to remember them or have them pop up later for you, or maybe you take a little note in your phone if you're with your phone at this time. But let's just take a moment to reflect more formally on this past year and see if you can think of 3 or 4 or 5 words that describe or sum up this past year for you. So just take a moment thinking about 2023. What 3 or 4 or 5 words might you use to describe or sum up the past year? For me, because I've been working on this for so long, one of the things that I felt from this past year was I felt very balanced. So there were some times of busyness and sometimes of slowness, but I left the year feeling a good sense of balance, which was my goal after 46 years of life. I know the year before I felt one of my words was busy, and I didn't want to feel so busy. So this is part of what we do where we build on previous years of what we've learned. So the next question is, what worked well for you this past year? So what things did you put in place or just sort of happened even that worked well for you this past year? I know something I try to do in the summers when the kids are out of school is try to have a little bit lighter of a schedule so I can spend more time with the kids. And every year I say I'm going to do that. And every year the summer is always the busiest time for me. And I got really frustrated with myself. So this past year, I really did slow down in the summer, which felt wonderful. And I think that's part of what added to my feeling of balance this past year. So the next question is, what didn't work so well for you this past year? So what did not work so well for you this past year? So take a moment to think about, maybe it was the economy and that might have affected your job that you didn't have much control over. Maybe it was roles or responsibilities with family. What did not work so well for you this past year? And the next question is, what were the goals or intentions that you set for yourself, not necessarily accomplished, but set for yourself this past year? So at the beginning of 2023, what were some goals or intentions you were wanting to accomplish last year? Not necessarily that you did them, but that you were setting as your goal or intention. So I know I'm kind of zooming through this, but you can always listen to this again, or you can grab my book on Amazon, Reset. Now, when you think about these things that worked, that didn't work, and the goals from 2023 that you might have set for yourself, what are some things that you accomplished or completed and that deserve celebration? I love to celebrate our accomplishments and even our efforts. So if there's something that you might have accomplished halfway or part way, or you got started on, or something you completed the whole thing, I want you to celebrate yourself, to give yourself a pat on the back and to say, well done, congrats, or that's awesome, you got that going, keep it going. And then as you're thinking about this list of what worked, what didn't work, and accomplishments or goals you set for yourself from last year, are there certain things that you want to bring with you into this year. So things that might have you haven't accomplished, but you want to bring with you into this year so that you can keep going with that. Um, Sometimes it's, a lifelong journey with exercise or weight or eating healthy or reading more or watching less screens. So maybe there's something you want to keep on your list for this coming year. And then when you think about what's left over from this past year, what worked, what didn't work, what you wanted to do but didn't get to do, is there anything that you can decide to let go of, that you don't need to do anything with, that you thought that was something you wanted to do but didn't quite end up needing to get done or wasn't a priority at that time? It's okay to let things go, right? Hindsight's 2020, so we can see maybe at the end of the year that like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a big deal than we thought at the beginning of the year. And so take a moment to think about why you suppose you accomplished some of the things, some of the goals and intentions, and not the others. Why do you think you accomplished some of the goals or intentions from 2023 and not the others? Perhaps life took over and you got a surprise and you couldn't do what you thought you were going to be able to do. We had a broken bone in the family, and that caused us to have to spend a lot of time helping that family member out. So a lot of things that I had normally done, I wasn't able to do because I needed to help this family member navigate stairs and not fall down them. So that definitely threw a wrench in some of my plans this past year. So why did some of the things work or get accomplished and some didn't from last year? And then, because I'm a big fan of celebrating and honoring yourself, is, you worked hard this past year. I know, our listeners are hard workers and high accomplishing, high achieving people. And I want you to celebrate that. So, what are a few things that you can be proud of yourself for accomplishing this past year, or even be proud of yourself for letting go? Because that's also something. If you saw something that just needed to be let go, that's something to celebrate as well. So, showing yourself some gratitude, being proud of yourself. And perhaps there were ways in which you grew this past year. You grew as a person this past year. What are some things that you could be proud of yourself for becoming? I noticed myself becoming a little bit less busy, which was a goal, a little bit less accomplishment focused, and just focusing on being. So, what is something that you can be proud of yourself for becoming this past year? And again, as you reflect on all of these things that you've done or not done appropriately, what can you feel some gratitude for yourself? Like what do you feel gratitude for yourself or for your situation, for where you're at in life at this point? I'm sure there's a bunch of places you want to go, but for right now, what can you find some gratitude for what you've accomplished in this past 2023? So those are our questions for honoring the past. And as we wrap up this episode, I'm going to read from the book this little inspiration for you to pause And exhale. Smile on the inhale. Breathe out the exhale. And again, smile on the inhale. And to repeat this as needed. Now that you've honored the past, feel free to take a break here before continuing. There is no need to rush through life or through these exercises to reset. Check in with yourself and see what's best for you at this time. Stay tuned for our next episode, which will be about taking a look at the future now that we've honored the past. Feel free to visit us, mind-center.com. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.